Welcome to our English lesson. Today, we are learning to be able to sequence a story in a story plan. Now, in our learning objective here, we have two keywords, the word sequence and the word story plan. Put your thinking faces on and think, do you understand these words? Now, at any point in this video, you can pause me and talk to your partner. Can you explain this word, sequence? Say it with me. Sequence. Talk to your partner and pause me now. Well done. Now, to sequence events means to put the things that happened in the story to the right order, from what happened first, next, after that, to what happened last. And as you can see, I have highlighted some of these words already because this is some of the vocabulary that we can use to sequence events, to put them in the right order. Now, the second word was a story plan. Talk to your partner. Pause me here. Well done. So a story plan is something every single writer has to do before they write a story. Writers plan their stories before they start writing so that they know what is going to happen. Planning is an important part of writing a good story. Writers call the main events in the story that happen the plot. Can you say it with me? The plot. I know you've heard this word before, but it's a good one to remember. Now we are almost ready to write our own story, but because we are writers too, we have to make a story plan. Now you can pause me here and watch this video about story planning. Now that you've watched the video, the main thing to remember is that we are not planning a spooky story. What kind of story are we planning? Pause me here. We are planning a traditional tale with a happy ending. Now, the story that we've been working with is called Cinderella of the Nile. And this is what a story plan to the story Cinderella of the Nile would look like. And this is actually a story plan that the author of the Cinderella of the Nile, Beverly Naidoo, would make herself. Now, the easiest thing is to make the story plan in the past tense already, because that is the tense you are going to use to write your story in. Now, as you can see, the story has a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. And there is a lovely curve that tells us that the story started here, this is what happened in the middle, and this is where it ended. Now, it doesn't matter whether you write on the right half of your story plan or whether you write on the left half of your lovely story curve. What matters here is where your arrows are pointing. So wherever the first arrow points is what happened first, wherever the second arrow is pointing is what happened second. And let's just check whether it is true, whether whether the events are in fact sequenced correctly, whether they are put in order correctly. And just notice that it is in the past tense, so we have the suffix ed. So first, Rhodopis lived in Greece with her parents. You are our treasure. Second, she had auburn hair, the color of the finest sunset. Third, one day a bandit surprised her and took her away. Number 4, a kingfisher carried a strand of her hair to her parents. Number 5, see, a sheet of silver. Rhodopis was sold into slavery. Number 6, she never smiled but made animal friends. Number 7, she met Aesop who told her a fable. Number 8, Rhodopis was sold unto Charaxus who treated her well, gave her a house and a pair of rose-red slippers. Number 9, Horace stole one of her slippers. Number 10, the 3 sisters were mean to her and didn't tell her about the Pharaoh's feast. Number 11, Horace gave the slipper to Amasis. Number 12, Amasis searched for the girl who would fit the slipper. Number 13, Rhodopis fit the slipper. And number 14, she never saw her parents again Rhodopis and Pharaoh Amasis lived happily ever after. The end. So it is always important to have a happy ending. Now what I am noticing that the author, Beverly Naidoo, she already planned to include some of the vocabulary she was later going to use in her story. So can we notice some of the vocabulary that's already highlighted in green? So she planned for the metaphors, you are our treasure. Hair, the color of the finest sunset. She planned for the adjectives, auburn hair, rose red slipper. She planned for another metaphor here. She just wrote see a sheet of silver. Now that's fine. It doesn't have to be full sentences that you write in your plan, but it has to be planning for some of the interesting vocabulary. She planned for some of the sentence openers here, one day. She planned some of the interesting literary language, a strand of her hair. That's really interesting. And she also planned to include the name of some of the other characters, and she put them in the plan. So we have Aesop here, Horus here, Charaxus here, the three sisters as well, and Amasis, the pharaoh, at the end, so that we look at the plan and we know when some of the other characters should be introduced in your story. Now, when you are planning a story, always consider the setting, the baddie, meaning the villain, and other characters. This would be the second part of the story plan that you make for your version of Cinderella as well, and this is the one that looks like for Cinderella of the Nile. So setting is Greece, Egypt, and the Nile. The baddie and the villain is the bandit and the three sisters, and the other characters, some of the other characters are Aesop, Charaxus, and perhaps the pharaoh Amasis. Now you will have to answer 3 questions. What will Aesop, or the wise character, tell your main character? The answer for Cinderella of the Nile is that bending like the reeds is sometimes the wiser choice, and Aesop encouraged her to be brave. The second question you will have to answer is, how will your main character be found by their true love? In Cinderella of the Nile, of course, Horus stole her slipper and gave it to Amasis, and the pharaoh searched for the girl to fit the slipper. Now, before you start planning, consider the main character that you designed last week. You can even pause me here and go have a look in your books, or just have a little think on your spots. With her or him in mind, can you think about the answers to these questions? Think carefully first, and then pause me and discuss this with your partner. Now read these questions with me. Don't read them out loud, but just read them in your brain at the same time as I'm reading them. Where is your story set? When is your story set? How will Cinderella be found by his or her true love? What will be the object if it's not a slipper? And what will Aesop or the wise character tell your main character? Pause me here. Now, this is my main character I designed last week. Her name's Amelia. I planned for some metaphors and similes that I want to use. I want to use these adjectives to describe her appearance and personality, and the object that she is going to have stolen from her is a cloak made out of the fur of 1,000 mice. Now, these were the answers. These were my answers to these questions. So my story that I'm going to be writing at the same time as you is going to be set in a fairy tale land in a castle. It is going to be set in a time when there was no electricity, no phones, or no cars. My main character, Amelia, will be looking for her cloak, which had been stolen from her, and the prince will catch her red-handed. The object is going to be a grey cloak made out of the fur of 1,000 mice. And Aesop, I think I'm going to leave his name, Aesop, in my story, is going to be a beggar who will tell her to stop hiding from the world and show the world her true self. Now it is almost time for you to write your story plan, but I just wanted to show you mine. Now this is the story plan I made for my version of a traditional tale, and I would just like to share it with you first. Now I would like you to write your plan in the past tense, because it is going to be the easiest thing for you. because you are going to be writing your story in the past tense as well. So just remember, we use the suffix ed when we put verbs in the past tense. Of course, sometimes it doesn't work and we just have to remember the form of the verb in the past, just like now I fly, in the past I flew. So the first time I wrote, once upon a time there lived a girl called Amelia. She was a scullery maid. The second thing, she was as quiet as a mouse. She had no family. The only thing she had left was a cloak made out of mouse fur. The third thing I planned for, 3 kitchen maids were always mean to her, calling her names. You are as filthy as a rat. The fourth thing I planned for, Amelia was kind-hearted and always gave food to the beggars outside of the castle. Now the next thing I planned for is, one day a beggar called Aesop said to her, and then I have a little fable which basically says the same thing as my previous answer to the last question. Then around the middle part I planned for that Amelia took, can you see the past tense, took her cloak off and the prince stole it. Then the next thing that I planned to happen is the prince wanted, can you see the past tense, to catch the man who had such an interesting cloak and set a trap. And next, Amelia was sneaking around the castle looking for her cloak and fell in the prince's trap. Then the next thing, she realized that she didn't need to hide from the world anymore and gave her cloak to the prince. And the prince was grateful to have something to hide from the world, even if just for a while, because he didn't want all the eyes of the world on him, and in the end they became friends and remained friends forever after. Now I think this is a good plan and I would be quite happy if you did something similar, but I think I need to do better. Now I think I have already planned for some of the adjectives, so I can highlight the word adjectives here, and I planned for that Amelia was kind-hearted and that the prince was grateful. So these are good words I planned for. I could perhaps go back to my plan here and see if I included all of them. So I said that she would have eyes like emeralds and timid, honest, shy. So I definitely did not include those ones in my plan yet. So this is why we can always edit our writing. So I can do that now, and I can even write it here. I can write timid and shy and honest. Now what I did, I have planned for one sentence opener here, once upon a time. So we're planning for sentence openers, but I think I can put some more in. So maybe in the end I can just say in the end. It's a good thing to remember to put a comma after each sentence opener in the end. Maybe when she's sneaking around the castle I can write at night. Sentence openers are lovely to tell us more about the time. So I can say at night and put a comma afterwards. Maybe she speaks to Aesop and then she takes her cloak off, so I can say later that day. That's a good one. I like that one. Later that day. And put a comma after the sentence opener. And I can always do maybe next when she goes to see the beggar, and I can even do more, but I think that's enough actually for a story. Then did I plan for some metaphors? I sure did. Metaphors and similes. Let's put them in blue. So I have you are as filthy as a rat. That's a simile. I can write you are a filthy rat. Now that's something she is. Now that would be a metaphor. I also planned she was as quiet as a mouse. That's a lovely simile there. So I definitely planned for that. And did I plan for some adverbs? Not yet. So maybe instead of she was sneaking around, I can say something like she was walking around the castle sneakily. So adverbs could be in red, and I can write the word sneakily. So adverbs always end with the ly. I can maybe somewhere say kindly, or even quietly, or bravely. When she took her cloak off, maybe it was bravely she took it. She took her cloak off bravely. Okay, so I am very happy with my plan now, because I planned for all this lovely literary language to use in my plan. Now, when you plan your story, please make it your own. Remember, there needs to be a happy ending. It might be either ending in love or in friendship. You don't have to write as much as I did. You can choose to draw more pictures. So in the beginning, you could just draw your main character and just write the adjectives you are planning for. So you can just write kind-hearted here, or you can write when you have the three sisters as the baddies, you can kind of draw them. Maybe you can plan for the names, what you want the names to be, and then you can just plan for what they call her. So you are a filthy rat, exclamation mark, and have it in speech marks. So that would be a lovely plan as well. I'm so excited to see your plans. Now, go!